Now, welcome. So, I don't know, maybe this is OTT, but we thought we'd have another little stab at some GAA. It is the season. We sort of figure these are the weeks. We got, what, 2, 3 more, and then we'll have be into club, and that's great and everything, but, So we had a few emails in saying, more GAA, keep GAA coming. And they just felt a little bit more meat on the bone from the weekend, in particular around Kerry. Just Jack O'Connor's press conference afterwards, the Darragh O'Shea stuff, certain tetchiness with it all, allied to one of the great 15 minutes we've ever seen. So given Tomás Ó Sé is a regular with us this summer, we thought, you know what, Tomás, let's have a little chat, get his take on the weekend. So that's the plan right now. If you have had your fix on Monday already, that's fine. There's loads of other stuff to keep you going. On the Owen Farrell news, Will has recorded a special left wing. We have football, soccer today with Miguel Delaney, Maeve de Burke, David Kelly. We'll have Paul McGinley tomorrow, bits and bobs, etc. You get the deal. So look, if it's not for you, if it's too much GA, that's okay. Our GA coverage is with thanks to AIB. They're at the heart of Gaelic games across both club and county, and in 25 they're celebrating a decade of sponsoring the All-Ireland Senior Football Championships. This year has been the best in years, and AIB more excited than ever to bring fans closer to the action. You can check out #TheToughest for more. So yeah, let's go down and see what's happening in Kerry and the tetchiness that we talked about, as well as the good football. Without further ado, Tomás Ó Sé.
Hi Joe, how are you?
Still basking in what a great weekend's football that was. Come on.
It was good, yeah. It was unpredictable. It was Jesus, I didn't see there was a couple of things there now, Josh. I didn't see the Meath. I didn't see that second half from Kerry coming. I didn't see the second half from Galway coming. I didn't think the Dubs would lose. So Jesus, it's the summer that keeps giving. It's brilliant, and yet we go forward and we don't know how to predict either. But four cracking games on every level.
Yeah, I'm not even dreaming to predict again. It's impossible. I like Wednesday. Give me this is just to put you on the spot. When's the last year that there was a better football championship to
Oh,
date?
Jesus, you're going back there now. Like I was discussing it there with a fella. Am I right in saying 51, 52 games in this championship already? And I guarantee you, Joe, you're well into the 40s in terms of good matches. Good matches. And it's not as if it's end to end all day long, but just teams. And we've spoken about it before. It's the collective. And I don't care what manager or what coach or what player would say. Nah, there was nothing wrong with the game. Jesus, it's that argument is it's
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 over.
not it's
It's
not a good
over.
argument to have. Like the scoring that's there, and Kerry, I suppose, showed, and all the teams showed. Meach just showed. If you have an attacking mindset, you can attack every part of the game. I mean, the defense is the one area that's actually vulnerable, but that's actually adding to it as well in its own twisted way.
Yeah.
So it's um it's phenomenal, and it's giving us. I think, and I've said it before. I think it's giving. Do you know how we had tiers and you had the top tier? I think it's bringing the tiers closer together. I think teams are actually down. I wouldn't have given them a sniff to get as far as they did. Meat, I wouldn't have given them a sniff. Monaghan, and this is not being insulting on them, but I genuinely couldn't like Meat, Joe. How in the name of God? Like it's not as if they're after signing X amount of players. They had these players. They had these players were in Meath. They're just playing with a confidence. You'll have to um, hand it to Brendan and the boys above there. They've done such a very, very good job. It seems to be a happy camp. Um, they defend like dogs. They're not, um, fully blocked out at the back, but at the same time, they have big men around the middle of the field and they'll compete all day and they'll win their fair share of ball. But then it's up front, and I always listen to the interview straight after the game because you'll hear a nugget or two, and basically I don't know who it was that said at halftime the plan didn't change, and you could see it. They kept plugging in the first half, they kept taking shots, they kept being direct, they kept taking their man on, kept kicking the ball in, and in the second half they just came off. Shots came off for them, and Galway had no answer whatsoever to it. Like it was as if Galway were expecting Meath at some stage to lie down, and they didn't. So I think they were probably the story of the weekend in what they've achieved, and there was a huge Meath crowd in there,
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
So the crowds are there as well, Joe. Like you have, I don't know what was there, 60 something on the first day, 70 on the second day. When was that ever for a quarter final?
No.
We even had Kerry people up there, Joe.
They answered the call, didn't they?
They did. Yeah, there was a fierce Kerry crowd, and they were more vocal than normal as well.
Or were they? Yeah. So what are they? Are they usually sitting there saying "impress me"?
They're usually sitting at home taking money from the Dubs.
Um, Start with Kerry for a second, because in some ways in some ways they're the story of the weekend. But then Meath disagree with that, I'm sure, and Tyrone disagree with that as well. But in some ways they were the story just because of that 15 minutes, which was really right up there. Like you've seen it all. You've been part of great, great teams. That was a special 15 minutes, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, because I didn't. The more you think of it, you had a first half there where uh, anytime Armagh went up to pitch, they seemed to be able to pick off their scores, and it was Sean O'Shea who held the. Geez, he was outstanding in that first half, Joe. From the very word go, he took the fight to them. He was direct. That was the one thing that I liked about Kerry the last day. They were direct. They were absolutely moving the ball at pace every single time. They were taking on their men. They were kicking the ball. They took the pace out of it when they needed to. But I didn't. I didn't. We were on RT, and um, the pre-match kind of chat and stuff dragged on, so we didn't get a chance to look at our kind of analysis. And the bit of analysis that I had for it was Rafferty, and he was up until the last day, I think. And there is some excellent goalies, Began and Patton and Morgan, brilliant all season. This fella, I thought, was, and not because of just him, it was because of the movement outside, and it was that kick. For the life of me, Joe, when it happened, I just turned around to the boys and I says, "Whoa, this fella is like, if you were going to go anywhere on Sunday, you'd need to take him as much as you could. But in any match down the years, and I include Cluxton in this, you never ever really smashed him. You might beat him on 5 or 6 kickouts over a half, but ultimately they'll get enough of kickouts out to do the damage they need. But by the time he actually got to grips with it and actually got his kickouts out, the game was over. The game was actually over. He kept trying the kind of three-quarter kick, the one out just before halfway line. I wonder now in hindsight, sure, we're all experts in hindsight, why didn't he just bomb it as far down the pitch and give Armagh some chance of blockading the middle? Because every one of the Kerry players, Michal Burns caught a ball,
Yeah.
jinked, took on a fella, took a dummy hop and over the bar. It just, everything clicked for them. Paddy had a great effect when he came in. Joe O'Connor thundered into the game. It wasn't a one-man show. It was a full team effort. Like, you had 4 points from play from the half back line, which is, I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah.
But it's there.
I know, I was looking at Gavin White rampaging forward, and I was like, have I sort of been sleeping on you? This is incredible.
Yeah, but I mean, Joe, like, that's always been like, I'd have a question mark over Tom Sullivan is another fella. Tom Sullivan and Shane or Gavin White and Brian O'Begley, it
Yeah.
could be thrown at them. You need, and that's what we were talking about there, that middle eight. You need them adding a bit of pace to it. It's made for them to take on players. Brian Begley did it in the first half. He lined up his man, he took him on, coasted past him, and kicked it over the bar.
Yeah.
But even sometimes, if it doesn't happen that it goes over the bar, you'll still have another runner coming off your shoulder, and it'll open up things. Very often teams, and I think it'll develop. You'll have more players taking on, and that wouldn't be the case if it wasn't for the rule, and all the rules, not just one, all the rules combined to help that.
Oh, I totally
So
agree. And
that pace was there as
yeah,
well.
I think that plays into your point about, by the way, these rules are going to bring some of the lower tier counties a little bit closer because of that 1v1 aspect. If you think back 20 years ago, Wexford would have a Matty Ford, and that gives them a chance because it's hard to totally shut them down. But as the game developed over the last 10, 15 years, it became very easy to shut down a Matty Ford. Like you could have a star player and like we'll look after him, and then what are they left with? Whereas you think Jordan Morris, he's able to take on his man, he's able to express himself. And you mentioned the 1v1 thing. Owen McElhone off the bench for Tyrone. It was a key moment in the game where he just sizes up a fella 10 metres in front of him and says, I'm just going around you. And
Yeah.
does, and knocks it over the bar. And we just haven't been seeing that for the last 10, 12, 15 years. So the star individuals can have a bigger impact in the game. And that's good for the lesser counties who produce a player or two.
But like, yeah, I fully agree with it. And I think we've been doing it a certain way and defending a certain way for so long that that over and back, and I know there's time to take the steam out of it and you have to bring it back out and you have to go over. But I think it's just more teams are just adding that little bit of pace. There's more space to take on a fella. Worst case scenario, Joe, unless worst case scenario you'll be fouled. You take on a fella, worst case scenario. No, they are getting more clever at it and they will get better at the defensive side of it. I guarantee you, teams, if you look at it now, all teams are open at the back and it's everybody's saying it like all teams from kickouts, from set pieces, they're open at the back because they're so pushed on and locked up front. That'll be the next step. I guarantee you the teams will start getting better at that and they'll start showing us the way on how to cheat in and how to block and how to push them back and buy yourself a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But right now, it's outstanding. But like the middle third, like if you had told me before, and I was deflated, I was 100% sure that Paddy Clifford would start. I was convinced he would start, especially after coming on against Cavan for the second half or whatever length of time he came in. So Paddy didn't start. Paul Ganey didn't start. You had Joe O'Connor moved up to wing forward. You had Mark O'Shea and Sean O'Brien start at midfield, and you were saying, Jesus Christ, we're in bother here.
Yeah.
But to be fair, and I haven't seen enough of the boys. Nobody has seen enough of Mark O'Shea. The new game, Joe, it's going up in the air there. You don't have to be a stylish David Clifford. You just make sure that you're smashing, making it awkward, crashing into fellas, getting breaking ball. Doesn't matter if you get it 6 feet up in the air or if you get it on the ground, on the carpet. Every ball is vital, and I think Kerry came out well clear as that 15 minutes showed in the second half. But Meath are the same. Meath have the big men around the middle of the park, and Conor Gray came on in the second half. Christ, he was outstanding. Like they have that physicality and that pace around the middle that will hurt teams. But more so than anything else, I think what Meath have is it's just the throw off the shackles kind of a job. They just go at you,
Yeah.
and they make no bones about it. Everybody knows they're going to do it, but it's very hard to stop them because of the way teams are set up and have to push up and there's space at the back.
Big time. I mean, Meath have cleaned out everyone at midfield all championship. It's just
Yeah.
you kept thinking, well, they won't do it this time. They won't do it this time, and they just keep doing it. So when you said there at the top, you were surprised by that Kerry performance second half. You were surprised by Meath, and you were surprised by Galway. Galway not in a good way, I'm presuming.
Yeah, I just thought they had a corner turned. I haven't been impressed by Galway all summer. I just feel that there's more in them. I suppose, look, it's natural. Conroy was player of the season last year, and it's very hard at the age he is. New rules coming in to have the same impact. Killian McDade was running a bit flat. Hence, in fairness to Joyce, he just went with the changes. He brought in Peter Cook, he brought in Jack Lynn. And I just thought Walsh was going well, Finnerty was going well, Thompson was going well. They were defending, they had big men around the middle of the park. But ultimately, when they started losing ball around the middle of the park, geez, they couldn't get back into it up front because Meath were just that little bit snappier at the back
Yeah.
themselves and kept Galway out. Shane Walsh struggled at times. They just couldn't make headway. Joe, they couldn't make, to be fair, he hasn't been, we haven't seen enough of him. He made an impact. Galway showed great character coming back into the game. But then Meath showed even greater character. It would have been very simple for Meath to fold, and I thought they would have at the time.
Right.
But they showed huge character to come back into it again and score their own goal. So I think it will be disappointing for Galway because they played with an amount of pressure the last couple of years. They've made a couple of finals. They look back at last year's All Ireland final with regret, I'd have no doubt, against Armagh. And I think there's this kind of expectation that Galway should be or deserve to be at the top, very, very top table. But, the performances will reflect that no. Unfortunately, Meath deserved
Yeah.
that win, and I'd say Galway are really, really disappointed with the
Yeah.
way it finished up for them.
We went off on a tangent there. To your original point, I agree with you on the Armagh kickouts. That little three-quarter one, especially out towards the touchline, where you're just going to get bundled out over it. To persevere with that seemed odd to me. Like, bomb it as
Mm.
far as you can, get set, let's try and just slow this thing down a minute. It was really strange. It just shows they're not used to it. They're not used to
Mm.
momentum waves like this. And I was a bit surprised, to be honest, they hadn't talked through what to do in those moments.
Yeah, but like I've never seen it, Joe. I don't think we've seen a couple like I remember. Oh Jesus, Cluxon is rattled. Sure, Cluxon was only after missing two or three
Yeah,
kickouts.
it was about two
No, and they
kicks he's
have,
rattled,
or
yeah.
they have him like. But whereas perhaps Rafferty, I hadn't seen it, and there was no out. Normally, you'd have a corner back that gets an out, but whatever way Kerry just smelt blood, they pushed up on the three lines. They took the space from that middle one that he likes. And to be fair, I'd 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 give it to Rafferty if he persisted with two or three more because he's been so good at it, and Armagh have been so good at it. But even the long ones that were going, they could have won them before. Midfielder would have caught it, or they would have got a breaking ball. And during that period, Joe, they actually did get one or two up the field,
Yeah.
but they missed. They couldn't actually break the cycle of
Yeah,
scores.
they got
They missed
they got
scores. They missed a couple of them. Like so.
three of the 11 kick. Kerry won 8 of Armagh's 11 kickouts in that kind of 15 minutes. Armagh
Yeah,
did get 3 of them. You can forget that, but they got no scores for the 3, as you say.
yeah, and that was massive. Like, and it was like it just worked out perfectly. I did. I don't know. Obviously, there wasn't a full game in Paddy Clifford, and in hindsight, it was a genius move.
Yeah.
Had it gone pear-shaped, had it gone the other way, people would have been asking, why in the name of God didn't you start him and then maybe get that little bit ahead? But I think that comes back to Sean O'Shea. I thought he was the man that set the tone
Totally.
for the whole day,
Because
and he was the fella that finished off strongly as well.
he was
The boys
brilliant.
all defended well.
He kept Kerry afloat in that first half. I thought, because I thought Armagh actually up until 5 points up. At 5 points up, I thought, God, they're so assured here. They're so like Sean O'Shea's pulling out little gems to kind of keep Kerry in it in a big way. So I thought this was all very comfortable. But O'Shea, it's just brilliant. But again, why is no one? And this is maybe they're all process driven. So Rafferty, I'm going to stick to my process and stick to my process. And I understand the logic of that in the modern era. But so he doesn't just change it up. And equally on O'Shea, they have their plan, but someone has to recognise this fella's feeling good today. It's happening for him. I'm getting out there.
Yeah.
And you'd know as a defender, you don't need to do as much to put off a Sean O'Shea kicking from 40 metres as you do Sean O'Shea on the 21 or the 20, where you really need to be in his face. Like from 40 metres out, unless it's a freak like Clifford, you probably only need him a little bit off balance. But you have to upset him somehow.
Yeah, well, there's two parts to that, Joe. You either, like, okay, they were always going to man mark, and they had to take, I suppose it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. Peter Canavan made the point on TV on Saturday or Sunday night, whatever night it was, that Armagh made the decision to play a sweeper back in front of David Clifford, which was taking a man outside. So they were going to defend inside an arc. But I think one of the scores that Sean Shea scored, was shocking. Charlie Oak should have sprinted out to him and not give him the shot. But then you saw Tiernan Kelly, actually, if you see it in the same clip, Tiernan Kelly actually backed off him. The argument was there after he kicking his second from play. Whoa, lads, this fella's on it. We need to pin him down fast. Put a man marker after him. I think they did that more so in the second half, but Shawnee had such a good day that he forced his way into it as well. He played with an anger, Joe. He played with a kind of an aggression that we haven't seen out of him in a while. And it was just, it suits him. It suits him to be direct because if it isn't on, he can come back out. But if you're direct all day, you'll get 3 or 4 options, and he's such a good kicker. It will come off for him. But it was him that set the tone. And don't think that it didn't have an effect on the Brian Begleys or the Gavin Whites. to have a go as well. Like
Yeah.
they obviously spoke about it and they wanted to take on that Armagh defence. And like every other defence in the country, they have leaked as well, and they leaked badly there in that time. But it was the 2 pointers, especially, that kept them in it. Like I don't think Armagh actually deserved to be. I think the goal was an awful sucker punch. The goal
Mm.
was a ridiculous one. Like Dylan Casey was caught badly. He didn't think there was somebody behind him, but it was a good goal by Grugan anyway. But at the same time, it was against the run of play in my mind.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Kerry, I think, were unfortunate to go in at half time. But then you had Paddy to come in, and nobody would have, even with Paddy coming in, Joe, nobody would have called what happened and the actual damage that it would have caused in terms of the kick out
No, it's
implosion by
incredible.
Rafferty.
It's incredible, incredible. So that, and we haven't even mentioned David here, and like, it was just a joy to watch. He is just, we're blessed to be able to watch him play football. It's amazing. But you mentioned something very interesting there: the aggression in Sean O'Shea, and maybe there was a little bit of that in Buglock and Gavin White and a few others. So Jack O'Connor here, I have a clip of him afterwards. Like one of the reasons I want to talk to you is to get a sense of Kerry, because. Jack Connor says a few interesting things here. He talks about almost they were able to play with a little bit of abandon because they were written off, and that it's a dangerous thing for a Kerry footballer. But instead of pretending I'm not reading the media, as lots of managers do, he went on the full frontal. So Joe Brawley's piece in the Sunday Independent he references here, and he also references Dara's piece, though not by name. But I'm assuming it's Dara. Everyone assumes it's Dara's piece in the Irish Times. So that aggression that we saw in Sean O'Shea, well, look no further than Jack O'Connor here. Have a listen.
Look, when everybody down, even in our own county, was throwing in the towel with us, I said, lads, I said in the dressing room after the cabinet, I said, lads, I've been here before, where we've been written off, the fuck, completely written off. And Kerry team written off in Croke Park are dangerous because it just takes a bit of the heat off. It allows them to play with a kind of a freedom and abandon, and that's what you saw there today. We were being portrayed as a one-man team. I saw somebody writing this morning that said that the only Kerry player worthy of being called a Kerry player was David Clifford. Now David's a great player, but David will tell you that there was a fair support cast there today, But I think sometimes we're being judged on a different criteria to other teams. I mean, Dublin got beaten by Meath in the Leinster Championship. I didn't see any ex-Dublin players coming out slating the team or slating the management like we had down south in our county. There's a sense of commitment to the team and a sense of loyalty to the team. And unfortunately, a few pundits down our way left themselves down in that regard. I mean, what's to be gained by slating people? It's the easiest thing in the world. I'm in the business of building people up. I'm not in the business of knocking people. I spent all my life coaching underage school kids, minors, under 21, seniors, at every level. I'm in the business of building people, not knocking people. And I'd ask people that are knocking that group and knocking people involved with the group, look in the mirror and say, what have you contributed? What have you contributed to Kerry football off the field? You know what I mean? It's very easy to knock people. Go away and coach a team. Go away and coach a development squad. Go away and coach a minor team. That's how you help Kerry football, not knocking people.
So, it's fiery. The only Clifford is fit to kind of wear the jersey thing. That's the Brawley one. There's an assumption he's talking about Dara here, O'Shea, but then he does say a few pundits. So I don't know the scene down there. You'd have a feel for what's going on. What's irked Jack O'Connor so much here?
I would say, Joe, and there is a thing down in Kerry, and it kind of irks me as well. I think there's a few things going on, and I don't think it's okay. So I think Kerry people understand how it works. Like I heard Kieran McGeaney after the game saying that Eamon Fitzmaurice. So the story would be that former pundits or former players would write articles. It's not planned. They don't write an article with the idea of having a chinwag with management before it to get the players up or to get the. I think players it doesn't matter if you're a player, if you're a fan on the street, if you're in the newspaper, if you're on the TV, sometimes the boys will talk as if they were in the dressing room themselves. I've seen Fitzmaurice in dressing rooms. I've seen him as manager, player. I've spoken to him outside. He'll say it the same way, and he'll call fellas out if they have to be called out. Dara will be the same. And it's always been the way in Kerry. Always been the way that if there's a performance, like Kerry did have a poor performance against Meath, Joe, no matter what way you look at it. And I think we're all looking up at Meath now and we're saying, but the reality is that Meath, even getting to where they got to the quarter final, were a surprise package, even though they're not playing like a surprise package. And I'm not running them down in any way. They are where they are, and they deserve to be where they are because they played outstanding football. But that's not the way Meath were perceived. So when Kerry went up to Meath, and you can make the argument that, and this is where the initial, I'd say, article by Dara came in, was, and the gist of it, he questioned when we were missing 5 or 6 players up in Meath, how we performed so poorly above there. Now, if there's Kerry players that will say that they were happy with their performance above in Meath, they're lying. They weren't. And there's no way they could be, right? And Jack couldn't have been, right? So I'd say, I don't think Dara, to be honest, I haven't read, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't read the full article. I just saw stuff that was in the social media and all that. But I don't think Dara questioned the players as such, even though he said it was probably a poor performance. I think he was unhappy with the fact, questioning the fact that our squad depth wasn't where it should be. And he questioned, I would say, why don't we give fellas more chance early on in the league, which there's an argument to that. Now, the other side of that is, if Kerry went on and won in All-Ireland, they'd have 5 or 6 or 7 of the Mark O'Shea's, etc., who you'd say, yeah, they are actually ready to go. But based on what we saw early in the league, based on what we've seen in the championship to date, up until that Meath game, you couldn't make that argument. So I think Dara had every right to say what he said in whatever papers, and it wasn't to rile the players or anything like that. And I think Jack rightly addressed that and had his pop back after the Cavan match. I think there was reference made after the Cavan match. Now, this is where I think the Kerry mentality should kick in, and I wouldn't give any media the sort of it if they started poking the bear again after the match. And I know he's entitled to his opinion and everything, but probably better off taking the higher ground and just fobbing off the interviewer there the last day or whatever question, because no matter, it was addressed the week before it, and then you had lapdogs, I suppose, Jack coming out backing him, but I think Jack was probably, Fitzmaurice put it right, Jack was probably hurt and Jack was angry. But I think in the performance that Kerry gave, and the build-up was difficult for them, but in the performance they gave, they answered everybody. They put everything to quiet. Everybody. They silenced everybody, and there was no need to answer anything, saying, nah, and that's what happened. We've all been there before down in Kerry, Joe. We've been through it. 2009 was an example, but I was part of a team before 2009. I think it was 2004, where Declan O'Sullivan, one of the Kerry greats, one of a great player, a brilliant guy, a brilliant captain, a brilliant leader, was booed off down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in front of, booed off by the Kerry supporters. So Jack has been there before and has dealt with it properly, and probably should have left it off. But I understand where the anger was at the same time. But it's just the way it is in Kerry, Joe. There will be, like, are you telling me? And I was in dressing rooms with all the fellas in question. Though Dara would ask the same question inside in the dressing room of himself that he asked of any Jack or any of the players. So it's nothing new, and it's not like they're all Kerry men at the end of the day. They all want Kerry to succeed. But I just thought it went on a week longer than it should have. Should have had one squad that way, one other squad this way, and leave it at that.
Well, I must confess, I opened Dara's column hoping for his thoughts, and then I was disappointed I didn't get another kind of clarification.
That's what I'd say, Joe. That's the Kerry way of dealing it. There's no, unless you're actually, what would the benefit of Kerry football be to have a go there again? I'd ask that question.
Yeah, I suppose. Well, there's an interesting dynamic when Jack O'Connor is saying, well, look at the Dublin pundits. They don't criticise Dublin or other counties. Why do we have to criticise our own? Like, that's a confusion for me of, well, what if you're working in the media and you're being paid to write a column, then your duty is to your readers. I don't give a damn how you feel about Kerry football. If I'm paying the price of a paper, I want to hear what you think about this. And you're in the middle of a big story with the manager calling you out and saying, why doesn't he take a team? Why doesn't he volunteer? Why is he not doing anything? And by the way, Dara has volunteered and taken Kerry teams, we should say. We should say. So it depends on where you're coming at it from. I can see Kerry folks saying, well, he's dead right to saying, no, let's not air our dirty linen. Me as a reader, it's a little late for that. We're in it now, boys. What have you got to say back? Kind of thing. So it depends where you're coming from. I understand where you're coming from as, listen, it's not good for a Kerry saga to rumble all summer, but I suppose there was a degree from my end of like, well, you're in it now. I mean, he just called you out very publicly. What's your response in a way? I was surprised O'Connor was so upset with Dara because I read the column back again this morning. Like, it's you know, he says, look, he could have blooded a few more players and the squad depth hasn't improved since 21.
But there's nothing in it, Joe.
Yeah, but then Dara even says, isn't the Irish Times, even says, but to be fair, like, he's won in All-Ireland, he got to a final, he's probably not doing much wrong. You could blood lads in the league, but then people would lose their minds if you don't go well in the league. So I can understand, you know, it's Jack's prerogative to want to win today. I understand that. So even though he made a bit of a criticism, there was lots of kind of fair qualifications in there as well. So I didn't understand why that one got to Jack O'Connor so much.
Yeah, and I'd agree. I don't think there was anything in that article. Like, I think it was more, maybe Jack took it more personally. Certainly not aimed at the players, and I don't think aimed at the players in terms of the performance against Meath. But there was stuff mentioned. But what he mentioned, Joe, you could actually sit down and argue and have your argument here, over and back, and it was up for discussion. I get that. But I think you're right. I think Jack was probably irked by it, and I think it was dealt with after the Cavan game. It should have been left. It should have been left. I don't see, and I'd still argue, maybe Dara didn't realise he was talking about Dara. I don't
Maybe.
know. I know, but I get it from the other side of it. But I don't think, and I think it'd be unfair to say that, and I haven't even asked Dara, I didn't read the article yesterday, but I don't think, I can only speak for myself in terms of the media, and I'd be half afraid, like there's friends of mine have managed Kerry, but I'd still call it as I see it.
Yeah.
And I'd have less fellas talking to me about it. I'd be very afraid at times doing things and saying things because I know I'll say it out. And you'd have to be kind of careful, or whatever way you want to put it. But if you go down the road of not saying what you think, then but then I'd have a different viewpoint of the likes of what I can't remember what the tweet was. He basically said that Dara didn't address it, but I don't see how that would benefit anything. But I get it. I get the fact that it was an issue, and there was
You're
Jack
a columnist. You're in the media business.
Waiting for an answer.
Yeah. And
But
that's the business.
I think Jack should have taken the higher ground before that, Joe. So
Right.
you could equally point the finger at Jack and say, "What the hell are you at there?" Do you know? But
Well,
he had called him out the week before.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it is like, I don't like, there's stuff written like to say that, I don't know what was it, a headline or an article? I didn't read that either. But to say that David Clifford was the only footballer and a fella inside in the same house as him, Paddy, as good as there is in the country, and then Shawnee showing what he did, and then, but maybe it was the call to arms that the players needed as well. Maybe there's always some spark. Like, maybe, like, I was frustrated at times during the year because the players are better than what they're playing, and then you see a kind of you described it well there, that you see these players coming from the defence with attacking and taking fellas on. Like, that was always there. That ability is always there, and it's in other teams as well. That's why people, I suppose, will be disappointed with Galway, because they know there's a lot more in them, and we've seen it in them. So, I think. Look, I think in the long run, it's not over yet. They have a couple of mountains to climb if they're going to really answer everything, but they answered a lot of critics on Sunday with their performance.
Do you,
So I
do,
would
do,
put
do you,
two.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Look, it's all the kind of the noise that goes with it. Do you think so? O'Connor seems angry. And they played a little bit angry and a little bit, Sean O'Shea. Just the way O'Shea played, the way you said it, that bit of aggression, directness. Wouldn't be shocked if he was aware of what was written that morning, for instance, the Dara stuff's bubbling away. Like Jack O'Connor's talking about pundits are down our way, plural. He's not just saying Dara and Dara only, like it's plural. They seem like a side who've built a little siege mentality. They're all at us. They're all having a go, even our own. And like if they have to bend the truth a little bit to get a bit more reaction out of themselves, they're doing it. They look like they're playing a little bit angry, and O'Connor's happy to channel this. That's what I get a sense from him. He's like, no harm. Let's ride this wave.
Yeah, but I've seen that before. Like that's the psychological part of the game, Joe, that no matter what way a thing is presented in front of you, you'll twist it
Yeah,
to suit yourself. So if there's an article in a newspaper or if there's pundits giving out about Kerry or whatever, but they still have to back that up because it only becomes something to use if you turn and twist it and perform to the levels you're supposed to perform with.
well,
But
it worked on
I
Sunday.
think an angry Jack O'Connor
Yeah,
is good for Kerry
right.
because he doubles down and he focuses even aggressively, and there's a thickness about Jack that is to be admired.
Yeah,
Like there is, like and it's true about all of us. Like if you're told Happy Gilmore, if you can't do it, you'll do it again and you'll do it again. But Jesus, I think collectively you can see that in the whole team that they've all answered it
yeah,
and that they've all come to the table. But it's still you still need somebody to take the first bite. And I thought Shawnee he was the right man
yeah, yeah,
to step up, and I think he sparked the whole thing off.
yeah,
Like I think it was the same in 2009. I can't think of it now, but I don't know what stage that early goal was. It was Mike McCarthy. Everybody look at the Gooch rolling the ball in.
yeah.
It was actually Mike McCarthy who tore up the field,
Right.
and that was the statement. And when fellas see that kind of happening on the field, whoa, Jesus Christ, there's a tempo here. Let's go, and we keep going. You like in the second half. Armagh, the one thing that has been thrown at Kerry the last number of years when they've fallen is their fitness. Their fitness was always questioned, always
Yeah,
when they lost.
yeah,
And Armagh in that second half, Armagh was never questioned. They weren't questioning Kerry's fitness in that second half because whatever happened gave them actually more energy. So that's a psychological thing as well. And if anything, Armagh looked like a tired team because they had no answer or they couldn't come out of whatever hole they were in. So yeah, I think a little bit of anger, a little bit of thing, and it is twisted. They do twist it in certain ways, but look, I think people mistake, and I go back to that McGeaney comment. There is no game. We're not smart enough to play games like that. So you don't go writing an article to purposely.
no.
You'd like to think that you're writing what you think, number one, and there's some truth behind it, number two.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all been so interesting. Come here, we won't go through everything. Just give us a quick one on the Dubs as they sail off into the sunset and Desi bows out. They were beaten 23-16 in the end. It was obviously closer than the scoreline, but the two-pointer thing really seemed to kill them. Like, Tyrone had 3 two-pointers in the first 10 minutes. Dublin had 2 two-pointer attempts, scored none of them. They've kind of been outscored on that front all summer. It was interesting. It came up in our panel on Monday, and Philly McMahon disagreed with Desi, but Desi said we just don't have the profile of players maybe to make the two-pointer shots, and so we didn't want to get bogged down in that, so we didn't worry about it overly. We just, we worked one-pointers. Philly did not agree that they don't have lads who can kick two-pointers, listed out a few he thought could, but that definitely cost them big time because they fought very well, competed well, like they were every bit as ravenous as Tyrone, but the shooting boots again got them.
Yeah, I think they created enough chances though, Joe. If you look back at the game, it was very like the Armagh game in Croke Park. Jesus, they created so many chances the same day. And I think was it Paul Flynn that was saying that's why I gave Kerry an unbelievable chance against Armagh
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
on that night he felt that Kerry had the better forwards than Dublin did. And Dublin could have put Armagh comfortably to the sword had they converted the chances that they did against Armagh. But it was a similar. The next game, I don't know who they had in the next game, Joe. Who did the Dubs have after the
Cork.
Armagh?
Cork.
Yeah, and they improved no end on the conversion rate and the accuracy, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But then they came back out the last day, and I know the 2 pointers killed them from a Tyrone point of view, but had the Dubs converted half of what they missed, they'd have been right in it. And I think, to be fair to Desi, he mentioned that after as well. But look, I think you can argue the whole 2 pointer thing, Joe. You can have Conroy was firing him over for fun early on in the league, and I think people had him copped. Kerry were firing over none, and I don't think it was by design. I actually genuinely don't think it was by design, but they didn't have. I think Kerry are probably the top team in terms of 2 pointers now, and I think the way they look at it is, and this is the point that probably Desi wasn't making, that Philly probably argued, like there are 3 or 4 players in the Kerry team that will comfortably kick him. Like Clifford will kick him, Shawnee Shea will kick him, Joe O'Connor will have a go at him. And I think if the opportunity is on, I don't think it's not as if they're working on them either. They probably are, having said that. But if it's on, and you'll take it. And if it's not, it's not. But I think Kerry's conversion rate is outstanding. But to be fair, you'd have to give Desi a mention as well, Joe. Like, Christ almighty, you look at McGeeney and the amount of, in terms of time he's put into management with Kildare and with Armagh. Desi has been, Jesus, like he that was a hospital pass if ever whoever was to take over after Jim Gavin. And I still think, and people will argue, I would argue to the contrary. I think he did an unbelievable job there to win 2 All-Ireland seniors with them. But he's done it at under 21 level. He's done it at minor level. I think he has been a huge influence on the Dublin GAA landscape in general. I remember him as, obviously he was with the GPA years ago. And I remember I was at a dinner one day and I was accosted by Desi. Jesus, he fucking tore into me altogether. And at the time the GPA were fighting, like players were in certain counties were being treated terribly. I don't think they were getting proper gear or boots or food or the basics like that every team get now. But everybody wasn't getting them. But we were being looked after. But we didn't actually, it wasn't on purpose. Sure, we would have backed the GPA, but we felt we were fine. So, but they needed Kerry to support them.
Yeah.
And he was trying to make that point to me. But like he's given his life, Joe, and no matter what anybody says, how many intercounty managers this week or in the last 2 weeks are after packing it in? It's an insanely selfish, tough, like Jack Connor will say what he says, but I guarantee you Jack would have been under pressure for the last 3 or 4 weeks solid. And there's no going about it. Like, it is a tough job. And then you look at the Dubs and what they were coming off, 5 in a row, and he won the 6th in a row with them, I think.
Yeah.
And it is the highest profile, maybe alongside the Kerry job in the country. So a tough. But I think the way he handled himself, he was just a class act. So
Yeah.
it all came to an end, and I'd wish him well. But yeah, the Dubs, I don't think anybody expected the Dubs to really step up
Nah.
this year somehow.
It's a reboot.
So, do you know, and I think, yeah. And it's like, I know talking to good Dublin men in the last, they don't have the same players coming through, which I think the wheel will turn. They have the raw ingredient, Joe. They have numbers. No matter what. That's a lot more than other counties have.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's up to them to fight the battle and develop them.
Yeah, no, he's been very classy, Desi Farrell, in many ways. Even the way he bowed out, no nonsense, or I'll take time, just straightforward, just gone.
Yeah.
And probably deserves, though, two All-Irelands for a guy who's kind of, I hadn't realised he played 3 years at minor, and the year he made his debut for the senior Dublin footballers, he was also captaining the under-21 Dublin hurlers. So you can forget, like, what a brilliant career all in. So
Yeah.
2 All-Irelands, no shame in that,
He
to
was
say
an
the least.
international hockey player, wasn't he?
Was he? Yeah, wow.
He was, yeah.
I can't imagine him going through someone when you say he went through you.
Oh, there was badness in him. There was. I mean, there is. Sure, he wouldn't survive at what he was doing. Like, there's no way. That GPA job that he was in
Yeah.
was a tough job, Joe. And he was the right man there because he was tough enough for them.
Right,
And I
okay.
mean that as a compliment. I don't
Yeah, no,
mean
I know
that.
you do. He keeps it hidden enough these days, though.
He does, but he's right. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying there. We spoke about Jack. Your man will take Desi. Are you telling me Desi would be as like you'd be fellas would be laughing the way he is the same interview? Should all the comedians be taking him off like the same? But Desi doesn't care, and he was tough enough for that. I thought he's like for him all grades, and Jack has done the same, minor, under 21, senior, and to have all after all that time that the players have the time that they have for him, and you would have cross fellas, and he would have been in sticky situations. I think I'd take my hats off to him. Like he's an unbelievable loss to Dublin, Joe, because no matter what way you look at it, they have, and everybody's saying after the Ger Brennan retirement, I wouldn't think it's that straightforward now that it's a straight slot in there. They will make every effort to get it right, and whoever takes up the mantle, it's an important transition, so they
Yeah.
need to get it right.
I saw on the Sunday game, Paul Flynn said Declan Darcy fairly unequivocally, and Philly McMahon in here, Declan Darcy. He seems to be the one that's left an impression on those boys under Gavin, but I don't know. They also
Yeah,
don't
well,
see.
you had
Yeah,
Gilroy, you had Gavin, and you had Desi Farrell. They're the three men that have driven the last 15 years of Dublin football.
yeah,
20 years of Dublin football. So they're the fellas, and it's not easily replacing those fellas. So Declan Darcy, Ger Brennan. I'm not saying that they can't replace them, but they have a tough path. And then you put in the amount of players and the talent that they had, but they still have to manage that talent.
yeah. All right. Your favourites for the All Ireland are
My favourites for the All Ireland are Jesus.
just say Kerry and get over it.
Yeah, probably if Jesus,
Is that the O'Shea's trying to an olive branch out to Jacko? Is that what that is?
no, I wouldn't say I wouldn't have picked Kerry, and I'm not going to start jumping on the bandwagon now. I would have picked Donegal out early on.
Yeah,
But if you ask me, are Kerry capable? They are more than capable of taking Donegal down. But then, like, it's like the flip, Joe. Are Tyrone going to give Kerry the space that Armagh gave? Are they going to give him the dominance around midfield as Armagh gave? Are they going to not have a kick out if they're under the cosh in the back pocket? That's where the learnings are, and then you might be reversed back into it. But I think people will underestimate, don't underestimate what a spark and what a performance like that can do. And that Micheál Byrne's performance, for example, it can bring fellas up 2 or 3 levels. So Kerry will have a big say in where it goes, yeah.
very good. All right, good to catch up. Get your thoughts on it all. Thanks so much.
No bother, Joe. Thanks a million.